Now, moving on from verses to verses 19 and 20, just like to read those again. Then some Jews came from Antioch and Iconium and won the crowd over. They stoned Paul and dragged him outside the city, thinking he was dead. But after the disciples gathered around him, he got up and went back into the city. So much in those two verses. Can you believe it? It's such a horrific thing that happened that, it is always amazing what men can do to one another. It's astonishing, really, that the capability of evil we have within us to hurt one another in such a way. But here is one of the greatest lessons we can draw from today in these two verses, and particularly verse 20. But after the disciples had gathered around him, he got up and went back into the city. Recently, our children have been working at a barn and helping to with clean out stalls and helping with chores with horses, and in return, instead of getting paid, they get some lessons or help to ride some of the horses, and it's something they're really enjoying. But as you can imagine, with horse riding, there's always going to be a point. At some point, you're going to fall off, and say, the best thing you can do is to get right back on the horse. And recently they've heard the phrase quite often, "Cowboy Up," and really that's basically just saying, you've fallen off. It may hurt a little, but don't worry about it. Get back up on your feet and be brave and continue where you left off. Now, I don't want to associate too much this story with what happened with Paul, because at the end of the day, what happened to him was horrific. But really, what he did was he cowboyed up. He got back on that horse. He, in the midst of severe pressure and trial, he was able to fight through it and get back up. We're all, as Christians, we're all called to be on a race. Paul talks about it in the scriptures, and it's not a race that is a sprint. It's usually described as a longer race, and we know something today along those terms called a marathon. It's a really long race, and within that marathon, whether you're in training or you're in the race at the time, many runners hit something called the wall. And it's not a pleasant thing. It's something they anticipate could easily happen. There's anybody is susceptible to coming into that scenario where they hit the wall, so to speak. And really, it's a point when your body and your mind are all have mixed chemicals working based on what is in your body and what has been used, and it creates a real delusional mess in your mind, and it's a really tough thing to work through. And there's multiple suggestions as to how to work through that wall. But one of them is that those around them are able to encourage them through it. They need people around them who, maybe there are other runners running with them. We've often seen amazing sportsmanship by other people running who sacrifice their time a little bit by helping another runner. Or it could be somebody they already know who's kind of have seen what's happened, and they've come into the mix, and they're helping them to keep going. But the point is here in what happened with Paul, it said, but after the disciples gathered around him. The disciples gathered around him. They were there for him. They might not have even said anything. We don't know. The point is they were there to encourage him to get back up. And the phrase "cowboy up" that I touched on earlier sounds a bit of a prideful, macho phrase that I can do this myself and get back up on the horse. And sometimes it is a little bit like that. But really, a lot of it in a Christian journey is that we need others around us to help us through the pressures of the trials that we face. And it's good for us to be able to use the walking stick, so to speak, of other people's help.